This is the live rig, but it's also the setup that we used when we have been recording and jamming in the studio the last years. The two setups are separated and mixed together. We are not syncing our two computers, but we are beat matching. It gives a slight movement in the tempos, but that can give a live feeling to the grooves. We'll start to explain how my side of the setup looks like, and then we will have a brief check on how Markus' setup looks like. We have tried to use Ableton software to both use the possibilities from the digital world in the computer, but also use what we like a lot, outboard in the analog world. But everything is synced through the computer and Ableton. We have realized that when we jam and when we play, we easier get into the flow when we are not looking too much into a screen. Therefore, we have tried to find a way to both play and express ourselves through the outboard equipment and the internal equipment in Ableton through controllers, to be able to leave the screen away. The computer is of course still there, because sometimes we need to do certain changes that we can't do with the controllers, and then it's easy to jump into the screen. But we want to have us and the crowd together with as little screen in between us. The main MIDI controller is an Alan Heath Xone 4D, and to extend it a little bit, we also added an extra 4 MIDI controller channels with the Xone 1D. And to do some extra parameters, we also have a fader Fox where we can tweak certain parameters. The good thing with the Xone mixer is that it's a combination of a MIDI controller and an analog DJ mixer. And in this way we were able to both control all the parameters and sounds in Ableton and the external instruments with the same device. In this way we feel that when I'm playing, I don't really exactly know what's analog and digital and what's external and internal. I can lose myself into it and play with it. And this Alan Heath mixer, the setup of that one is that you have 4 stereo channels in the middle, and there is also a built-in sound card, which means that you can route the signals from Ableton to different channels, and you can choose to have them the sound card channels, or you can put an analog channel or analog source into the mixer. My main sound from the computer is routed to channel 1. So when I put up this fader, it's an open channel, and I can then play with all these MIDI channels. All these are controlling different parameters in the computer. So this has nothing to do with any of this analog outboard stuff. To make it easy for us, we have tried to find a certain logic in how we arrange the different samples and different kind of sounds on the channels. So we don't need to actually think too much when we're playing. Here we have a bass kick, channel 1. Here is a bass line. The next channels have different kind of sounds and loops, melodies. And we continue. Other sounds and samples. Little drum loop. Here's a clap. Up here we get the hi-hats. And on the last one I will come back to later because it has something to do with the outboard equipment. So all these sounds went out to channel 1. Something that we really like to do is also to be able to tweak the samples in the computer with external effects and stomp boxes. The few channels normally send the audio signal from another output on the sound card. So this sound is routed out to a channel strip with stomp boxes. Most of them are used normally by guitar players, but it's really fun to use them for any kind of sound, keyboards, drum loops, and whatever you feel like. So I now send a sample that I have chosen here in Ableton out to the chain. Then I run the audio signal back from the output on the last stomp box into the DD mixer on an analog input. And then I can tweak them here with delays and EQs, different kind of flaners and other delays. The other channels, for example, I can put a synthesizer. Here is a 101 that is triggered with a MIDI clock signal out from the computer into this Acme box. It's a MIDI interface that can control both MIDI devices but also old control voltage devices, CV, like 808 or 303 or 101 or etc. So now this is triggered, synced from Ableton, so it's always in tempo, and I use the 808 to make the rhythm pattern. So here I can choose what kind of pattern. Now it's a straight 8 note, and then I trig out from the 808 into an external clock. If I don't want to do 16s, I can easily change the pattern. Here it is. And then after that I can also choose to do different kind of shuffles on the go. Now I'll take it back like it was. So it's routed into here, and that synthesizes also. I go through different pedals, filters, phasers, delays. I also have something that I use a lot, and something that is very useful when you don't have so many hands. At the moment I do it mostly with external loop pedals. Here we have a little I think it's called Red Sound. It's a DJ looper, so it keeps the tempo of what you are recording. So for example here, if I have the 101, I press that channel, the 101 is coming here on the channel 4. I press one on the pads. Each pad can hold one sampled loop. And here it's recording by itself, 1 bar. And then I have routed that one into another channel. So then I can transpose this one, for example. Then maybe I want to add a little extra So just very quickly and instant with the 101, I can create a soundscape. And then when this is done, move on and play with something else. while that is doing what it should do. On the MIDI controller, now I take away this, we have also assigned not only faders for the volume, but also a few other parameters that we felt were very important and useful to have to be able to change and edit the sounds on the go. And they are pretty much very basic mixer parameters. If we take, for example, here is a little melody loop. Here I can turn on and off an EQ. And then I can sweep a band pass EQ up and down. Here I have added a delay, which is what most of the time when I've been playing something recorded and looped, I need sometimes to have a delay and sometimes not. Very often when I have a little loop, I want to add a flow to it. So here is a delay, and that very delay, I can also control the parameters of the delay on this fader Fox. For example, the length, or change it to a reverb. When I'm giving the sound to Markus somehow, or I put myself in the background so Markus can take a step forward and express himself, it is very useful to restrict the amount of things happening in my soundscape with looping myself into shorter loops, which is easier for the listener to get into without focusing on them. And then Markus can start to explore longer phrases. So this is a very short loop anyway, so this will not have a very big effect, but on each channel we have a beat repeater in Ableton that we can put on and off. As I explained, the mixer is controlling different channels and samples in Ableton. When we jam like this, we always use the clip view, not the arranger view, because we are not arranging static. That's one of the main things we do live. We arrange it. We also have a few channels with software instruments. For this setup here, I have here two MIDI channels that I can play from this little Akai keyboard. Then on this keyboard I choose what sound I want to be played. The first one here is of course a Rhodes piano because it's so nice. And then I didn't have more channels here, so then I added a few parameters here, so I'm able to loop myself, I'm able to change the volume, I'm able to change filter and send effects. And here you can see Markus setup, and the basic or the center of the setup is exactly the same. It's Ableton as a software, and it's the Allen & Heath mixer as MIDI controller and an analog mixer. We are a bit different, me and Markus, and we like a few different things. And that variation is very great in different ways. Also when it comes to the sounds. Markus have here more analog drum machines. In this jam we use this 808. This normally we don't bring on when we play live at the moment. Here is a little clone of the 808 by MFB, which is really great, that Markus is using a lot in the live rig. He has also a new analog synthesizer from Korg called Monotribe. He has Markus' little setup with different stomp boxes. He has an old 303 He also have a MIDI keyboard that he can trigger and edit different software instruments in the computer. You also choose to have a Nord lead that you have down there. But the basic setup is the same. I have one audio signal that I route out from my mixer into Markus' mixer. And in Markus' mixer, all the audio signal gets together. So we have one stereo mix out. When we play live, we have two setups. I select and use samples, software instruments, analog instruments, and start an arrangement. When I'm doing that, Markus is choosing his samples on his Ableton. And like I said before, sometimes we do very jammy and random and just pick samples. And we have one setup that looks a little bit different, and it's just an enormous collection of all sounds we ever created, kind of. But we also have more simple sketches like this one, where we already before made a selection of a few sounds that we felt worked together. But when I'm moving away from the sound, I'm mixing out myself, Markus is moving in. And then he had selected another sketch with different clips. And when I'm totally out, Markus is left by himself for a little while I'm choosing something new. And when I'm ready with that, I can start to listen to what Markus is doing and move my way into that. When we jam in the studio, we do it similar, but since we're mostly playing one jam, we don't need to mix back and forth like we do when we play live, which make it easier for us to not go into the screen and start to choose things. We can just stay with the equipment and play.